Your mind is a garden. What are you letting grow? Your mind is not a machine. It's not something you can just force into action with more coffee or more noise. Your mind is a garden, and what grows in it depends entirely on what you plant and what you allow to stay there. Most people never realize how much power they give away by letting weeds take root. Fear, self-doubt, complaints, gossip, distractions. These aren't just bad habits. They're toxic soil. And if you keep planting your goals in bad soil, don't be surprised when nothing grows. You don't need a new life. You need a new way of thinking about the one you've already got. And that starts with taking full ownership of what you allow into your head, especially in the quiet hours when no one else is around to see it. Think about it. Most of us start our mornings by checking our phones, scrolling through other people's lives, reacting to chaos before we've even taken a breath. That's like walking into your garden every morning and pouring gasoline on it. And we wonder why we feel exhausted before the day has even begun. Your mind, like soil, will grow whatever you plant. It doesn't judge whether the seed is healthy or harmful. It just grows what it's given. So, if you start your day by planting comparison, fear, and urgency, those are the emotions that will grow all day. But if you start your day with calm, clarity, and purpose, something as simple as 5 quiet minutes with your own thoughts, you shift the entire day. And when you repeat that rhythm, day after day, you start to change your entire life. There's a reason why people who protect their mornings often seem more focused, more grounded, and more consistent. It's not that their lives are easier. It's that they refuse to let weeds take root while they're still waking up. They've learned to be the gardener, not the ground. They decide what stays and what gets pulled. And it's not dramatic. They just keep showing up, quietly and intentionally, with a plan for how they want to feel. That's the foundation of real mental energy. Not hype, not external motivation, but peaceful control over the soil you're working with. You can start changing the way your mind works, even today. You don't need a full transformation overnight. You just need to be honest about what's growing inside your head right now. Do you feed your mind encouragement or criticism? Do you water your thoughts with purpose or let them dry up from doubt? If your life feels stuck, it's not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you may have been planting the wrong seeds or ignoring the weeds. That happens to all of us. But the beautiful thing about a garden is it's never too late to tend to it. You don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to start pulling the weeds one at a time. Let's be clear about one thing. Weeds don't go away because you wish them gone. They go away because you show up daily to remove them. That's what self-awareness is. That's what mindset work really looks like. It's not always glamorous. Most of the time, it looks like this: catching a negative thought mid-sentence and replacing it with something more useful. It's noticing when you're slipping into blame or judgment and gently pulling yourself back to responsibility. It's choosing to talk to yourself like someone you love, not someone you're stuck with. These are not small things. These are the roots of everything you want in life. And if you ignore them, your goals will always feel out of reach, not because you're not capable, but because your soil isn't healthy enough to grow what you planted. There's something powerful that happens when you stop chasing energy and start creating it. Your mind gets quieter. Your priorities become clearer. You stop needing external permission to do what you already know is right. You start creating peace, not waiting for it. And that peace gives you something that no app, coach, or seminar can give you: a sense of personal strength that doesn't fade when the motivation wears off. That's the kind of strength that builds lasting change. And it all starts with one simple question: what are you letting grow in your mind today? A man once told me, "You don't lose your life all at once. You lose it one thought at a time." That stuck with me, because every dream that dies starts with a moment of doubt that was never challenged. Every plan that never took off got buried in a pile of mental weeds. And every person who gave up on themselves had a field full of excuses growing faster than their purpose. If you want a different life, don't just change your habits. Change what feeds your habits. That's where the shift begins. In your mind, in your soil, in your garden. And here's the best part. You don't need a perfect plan to begin. You just need to take one small action that feeds the right kind of growth. That might mean writing one honest sentence in a notebook, or saying no to something that drains you, or simply sitting with your thoughts before letting the world in. These are tiny seeds, but over time they grow roots, and those roots become the foundation of a life that actually feels good to live, not just impressive from the outside. So ask yourself now, with full honesty, what kind of garden am I growing with my thoughts? And if you don't like the answer, good. That means you're awake. That means you're ready. Now pick up the tools, start pulling the weeds, and plant something that actually matters. The harvest comes later. Right now, your only job is to tend to the soil. If you plant fear, you grow hesitation. But if you plant clarity, you grow courage, one thought at a time. Number 2, stop living in reaction. Start creating with intention. Most people don't realize how much energy they lose just by living in reaction. Not because they're doing too much, but because they're constantly responding to everything around them. The phone buzzes, they check it. Someone says something negative, they carry it. A problem shows up, they forget everything else. Their entire day becomes a chain reaction. And by the end of it, they feel drained, not because they were active, but because they had no control. When your mind is always reacting, it never has time to reset. You wake up, and before you've even formed a clear thought, you're already carrying yesterday's noise. That's not how you build a meaningful life. That's how you get caught in survival mode. Always busy but rarely clear. Living in reaction is like running through a forest with a blindfold. Every branch hits you in the face, every turn surprises you, and eventually you start thinking that pain is just part of walking. But what if it isn't? What if you could slow down, take the blindfold off, and choose your direction instead of being thrown into it? This is what creating with intention looks like. It's not about controlling everything. It's about deciding how you want to feel, and then building your day around that feeling, not the noise. Let's be honest. Most people don't build their day, they absorb it. They don't decide their focus. They wait for someone else to decide it for them. It starts early. You wake up and the first thing you check is your notifications. Instantly, you're reacting. You read the news, now you're reacting again. You get into traffic, someone cuts you off, and now your mood is in their hands. By 9 a.m., your mind has already been hijacked 3 times, and none of it was planned. That's how people lose themselves. Not in one big moment, but in small, constant reactions that wear down their clarity. If you don't start the day by leading your mind, someone else will. That's not philosophy. That's everyday reality. Your brain responds to direction, and if you don't give it any, it starts looking for whatever's loudest. Usually that's stress, or noise, or someone else's agenda. And here's the part no one likes to admit. You can be busy all day, even productive, and still not feel fulfilled. Why? Because you didn't choose it. It was chosen for you. True mental peace doesn't come from getting everything done. It comes from knowing you did what mattered most. That only happens when you lead your day on purpose. So, how do you shift from reaction to creation? It starts small. It starts with 5 quiet minutes before anything else touches your mind. No phone, no conversation. Just a space where you check in with yourself and ask, what do I want to feel today? What do I want to build today? Write it down if you have to, because when it's written, it becomes real. Now, instead of your thoughts running wild, they have direction. You don't need an hour-long morning routine. You need 5 honest minutes with your own mind. Let me give you a real example. There's a man I know. His name is Amir. For years, he started every day by scrolling social media in bed. 30 minutes passed before he even stood up. His brain was overloaded before breakfast. He was tired by noon. So we made one change. No phone for the first 20 minutes after waking up. That's it. He didn't replace it with anything fancy. He just sat on the balcony with a notebook and wrote one sentence about how he wanted to show up that day. 2 weeks later, his mood was lighter. His energy lasted longer. He said, I didn't realize how much I was borrowing my mindset from strangers. That's the cost of reaction. And that's the power of intention. The truth is, you don't need to fix your entire life to feel better. You just need to stop giving your peace away to everything that moves. That's what reaction does. It trades long-term clarity for short-term urgency. You feel needed, but never centered. You feel connected, but never in control. And the worst part? You start believing that stress is just normal. But it's not. Stress is a sign your system needs order. And order starts when you create space to think, to feel, and to choose, not when you're already overwhelmed. Now, let's talk about intention. Not as a fancy concept, but as a practical practice. Intention simply means making one decision before the world makes it for you. If you want to feel focused, set your focus early. If you want to feel calm, design your morning to be quiet. If you want to work deeply, build time blocks without interruptions. And if you want to protect your energy, be selective about what earns your attention. Every time you act with intention, you protect your peace. You stop living at the mercy of whatever comes up and start living in alignment with what matters. You also start respecting your own mind more. When you stop reacting all day, you begin to trust yourself again. You're no longer chasing control, you're building it. Quietly, patiently. And here's the best part. When you lead yourself well, other areas of life follow. Your relationships feel smoother. Your goals feel clearer. Your time feels more valuable. And you stop feeling like life is happening to you. You start feeling like you're participating in it, fully. So, if you've been feeling mentally scattered lately, this isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that your attention has been pulled in too many directions, and now your mind needs space to come back home. That space is where intention lives. You don't need a perfect plan to start. You just need to care enough to pause, even for 5 minutes, and ask yourself, what do I want to build today? That one question asked daily can rewire your entire mindset, because the mind that creates on purpose always outlasts the one that reacts without thinking. A mind in reaction burns out. A mind with intention builds peace, one quiet choice at a time. Number 3, the mental cost of delaying yourself. There's a kind of stress most people carry around without realizing it. It's not the kind that comes from a packed schedule or loud noise. It's the kind that lingers in silence, the tension of things you haven't done, the conversations you've avoided, the tasks you keep putting off, the habit you keep saying you'll restart. It lives in the background like low static. You don't hear it all the time, but it's always there. And that noise, that quiet, invisible pressure, is what drains the most energy, not because of what's happening outside, but because of what you're holding inside. Procrastination isn't always laziness. Often it's fear, or doubt, or perfectionism hiding under the excuse of, I'll get to it later. But what no one tells you is that later comes with interest, and the longer you delay, the heavier your mind becomes. Every time you delay something that matters to you, a goal, a decision, a habit, even a simple responsibility, your brain registers that as unfinished business, and it holds on to it. You might not be thinking about it actively, but it's still open in the background like 100 tabs on a browser slowing everything down. You wake up, and even before you start your day, you already feel behind. Not because the day is too full, but because your mind is too full. That's why you feel tired even after resting. That's why your motivation doesn't stick. Because you're not starting from zero, you're starting with mental weight that should have been cleared weeks ago. Let's make this more real. Think of a simple task, something you've been meaning to do for days. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's updating a resume. Maybe it's clearing your desk or fixing something small at home. You keep postponing it, telling yourself it'll take only 10 minutes, but you still don't do it. And here's what happens. The task stays small, but the mental guilt grows bigger. And every day you carry that guilt, your self-trust shrinks. That's the real cost. Not the delay itself, but what it does to how you see yourself. You start saying, I'll do it later, but what your mind hears is, I don't follow through. And after a while, that belief becomes a pattern. And the pattern becomes your identity. Now, identity matters more than energy, because you'll Always act like the person you believe you are. If you see yourself as someone who finishes things, you'll find ways to finish, even when tired. But if you see yourself as someone who keeps quitting, your brain will look for proof to confirm that. This is how people get stuck, not from failure, but from a loop of delay that eats their confidence without them noticing. So, how do you break the loop? You start by finishing something small, one unfinished task, one delayed habit. You pick it up, you do it, and you complete it. Not because it will change your life instantly, but because it sends a message to your brain. I am someone who returns. I am someone who closes loops. That small completion creates a ripple effect. It clears space in your mind. It gives you back energy. It rebuilds your ability to trust yourself, quietly, one action at a time. I remember coaching someone who was stuck for months. Her name was Rima. She kept telling herself she'd start journaling again. Every morning, she felt off, disconnected, but she didn't start. She said she wanted to wait until she felt focused, until she had the perfect morning. But that morning never came. Finally, I told her, "Don't write a page, write one sentence." That day, she wrote, "I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to feel better." That's it. The next day, she wrote a little more. Within a week, she was back in rhythm. She didn't wait for clarity. She created it, not through pressure, but through one honest, imperfect return. That's how mental energy gets restored. Not by doing everything, but by doing one thing with intention. The mind doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be honest. And honest people finish what they start, even if it takes longer than expected, even if the return is awkward, even if they feel embarrassed. Because what matters isn't how fast you go. What matters is that you stop leaving yourself behind. The most powerful mental reset doesn't come from changing your whole routine. It comes from ending the habit of postponing your peace. And here's something worth repeating. The longer you delay something meaningful, the more it becomes a weight, not a task. It shows up as tiredness, as overthinking, as anxiety that you can't explain. And the longer you wait, the more your brain associates that task with stress, even if it's small. That's why the best time to act is usually before you feel ready. You don't need to feel perfect. You just need to start. And once you start, clarity follows. Confidence follows. And most importantly, energy follows. Not the hype kind, but the calm, steady kind that lets you breathe again. So, if your mind feels tired, don't assume you need a break. Ask yourself what you're carrying that should have been finished. Ask what decisions are still open. What thoughts keep returning. And then take a breath and close just one of them today. No need to clean the whole list. Just remove one item from a shelf. Let your mind feel what it's like to complete something again. That one act might not look powerful on the outside, but inside you'll feel it. And that feeling is how you return to yourself. Your unfinished tasks are not harmless. They steal your energy one silent delay at a time. Number 4, energy comes from integrity. Keep your word to yourself. When people feel tired all the time, they usually think it's about sleep. They blame long hours, too much screen time, maybe poor nutrition. And yes, those things matter. But there's another kind of fatigue that goes unnoticed. It's not physical. It's not even emotional. It's moral fatigue. And it comes from breaking your word to yourself too many times. You say you'll wake up early. You don't. You say you'll eat clean. You cheat. You plan to finish something. You push it again. Each time it happens, something small inside you gets chipped away. Not your willpower, your self-respect. Now, here's what most people don't understand. Energy isn't just physical fuel. It's personal alignment. When your actions match your intentions, you feel stronger, even if you're tired. And when they don't, even 8 hours of sleep can't fix that sinking feeling. This is why some people look exhausted, even when they haven't done much. It's because they're carrying the quiet weight of broken promises. And that weight isn't heavy because of how big the promise was. It's heavy because it was made to someone that matters, you. Let's not sugarcoat it. The hardest person to earn back trust from is yourself. When you've broken enough personal commitments, your brain starts treating your plans like suggestions. It stops taking you seriously. That's why it feels so hard to start again. You say tomorrow, but your mind rolls its eyes. And the more that cycle continues, the more you need external pressure, deadlines, guilt, someone watching to follow through. But that's not freedom. That's a trap, because now your energy depends on outside force, not inner rhythm. But here's the truth. You can rebuild that self-trust, not by being perfect, but by being consistent. You don't need to change everything at once. You need to choose one promise, small enough to keep, but strong enough to matter, like drinking one glass of water every morning before anything else, like writing one sentence in a notebook, like standing up and stretching for 30 seconds every hour. These aren't grand gestures, they're proof. And over time, they tell your brain, I mean what I say again. And that's when your energy starts returning, not from caffeine, but from character. I remember a young man named Sean, bright, full of ideas, but always drained. He said, I don't get it. I'm doing everything right. I sleep. I eat clean. I take breaks. But I still feel off. When we unpacked his day, it became clear every plan he made to himself was optional. His to-do list was full, but none of it had weight. He said he'd write, then skipped it. He said he'd read, then forgot. He told himself he'd stop checking his phone before bed, but didn't. Each of these seemed small, but add them up? That's a person whose identity is built on silence, not follow-through. So we made one change. He picked one habit and tracked it for 7 days. Nothing big, just 10 minutes of focused reading every morning. No skipping, no excuses, just 10 minutes. The first 3 days felt forced. By day 5, something shifted. He told me it's weird. I feel sharper, not because of what I'm reading, but because I'm doing it. That's the hidden reward of personal integrity. It builds quiet confidence, the kind you don't need to prove, because you feel it every time you follow through. Let me tell you why this matters more than motivation. Motivation is loud. It's exciting, but it fades. Integrity is quiet, but it lasts. You might not feel proud the first time you do a small habit. You might even feel silly. But what happens after a week? After a month? That pride starts coming back. And with it, your clarity, your energy, your discipline. Because you're no longer chasing results. You're becoming someone who keeps their word. And when that happens, something else changes. Your goals feel lighter. You stop dreading them. You stop procrastinating. You stop overthinking. Because the person tackling them now believes in themselves again. And belief is a powerful thing. It turns slow days into steady ones. It turns distractions into decisions. And it turns tired minds into focused ones. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. Now, you might ask, but what if I still fail? And that's fair. Failure will happen. You'll miss a day. You'll mess up. You'll forget. But the difference between a weak mindset and a strong one is what happens next. Do you shame yourself and quit? Or do you say, that wasn't like me and I'm coming back? Strong people still fall, but they don't stay down long. Because their habits aren't just routines, they're proof of who they are. And you only need a little proof each day to keep growing. So let this number be your reminder. If you feel low energy, don't just look at your diet or your schedule. Look at your promises. Ask yourself, have I been keeping my word to myself? And if the answer is no, that's not a reason to quit. That's your starting point. Pick one small thing. Start with today. Finish something, even if it's tiny. And feel the difference. Not in your body, in your spirit. That's the kind of energy that doesn't wear off by evening. That's the kind of energy that builds a life. You don't lose energy because you're weak. You lose it when your actions stop matching your values. Number 5, replace noise with stillness. Protect your mind from chaos. Some people wake up already exhausted, and it's not because they didn't sleep. It's because they never stopped. Not mentally. Even in their rest, the noise continued. Messages, videos, scrolling, checking, comparing. The body might be still, but the brain never gets a break. You can't recharge a mind that never powers down. And in today's world, where distraction is a lifestyle, the real strength isn't in how fast you can react. It's in how often you choose not to. There's a cost to all this noise, and it shows up quietly. You forget things. You feel foggy. You start a task and lose focus halfway through. You scroll for a few seconds, and suddenly an hour is gone. But the worst part? You start losing your own voice. You don't even realize it because you're always hearing someone else's. That's what happens when the mind is fed constant input without time to breathe. It forgets how to process, how to reflect, how to choose. Stillness isn't a luxury. It's necessary. Just like the body needs rest after movement, the mind needs silence after stimulation. If it doesn't get it, everything suffers: focus, memory, even emotional control. That's why people snap over small things. That's why anxiety rises even in calm situations, because the mind is too full. And when something is full, even a drop overflows it. So, what does stillness look like? It's not about meditating for hours or disappearing into a cave. It's about pausing on purpose. No phone, no screen, no conversation. Just quiet, even if it's 5 minutes, even if you're doing nothing, especially when you're doing nothing. Because that space is where the real reset begins. The thoughts you've been avoiding come to the surface. The stress you've been carrying shows itself. And that's a good thing, because you can't clean what you won't face. I once met a man who told me he hadn't had a quiet day in over a year. Not one. Always in meetings, on calls, checking something. He said, "I feel like I'm drowning in information but starving for meaning." That line hit me, because it's true for so many people. They know everything about everyone, but nothing about themselves. They follow trends, watch podcasts, hear advice, but they don't know what they actually believe anymore. That's what constant noise does. It disconnects you from yourself, and you can't recharge what you've lost touch with. Stillness is how you return, not to a routine, to yourself. You don't need perfect silence. You just need space. And if you don't have 10 minutes in your day for that, you don't have control over your day. Your day has control over you. The phone can wait. The email can wait. The world can wait. Your peace can't. Because when your peace breaks, everything else starts cracking with it. Try this. Tomorrow morning, before the notifications, before the rush, sit in silence. No music, no words. Just sit. It'll feel strange at first. You'll reach for your phone out of habit. But wait. Let the awkwardness pass. Let the silence speak. You might hear your thoughts for the first time in weeks. You might hear nothing. Both are useful. Because in that space, you start resetting what matters. That silence becomes a boundary, one that tells the world, this time is mine. And once you get used to it, you'll start craving it, like water after a dry walk. Because your mind was never built to be filled all the time. It was built to rest, to breathe, to reset. And stillness gives it that chance. You can't recharge your mind if you never let it rest. Silence isn't empty, it's a place where clarity returns. Number 6, who are you becoming while no one's watching? When people talk about self-improvement, they often focus on the visible things, routines, goals, success, habits. But the real transformation doesn't start when you post your results. It starts in silence, when no one is watching, when there's no applause, no scoreboard, just you, your choices, and the direction those choices are pointing. Most of your identity is shaped in the private moments, the ones that seem small but carry weight, the decision to scroll or sleep, to speak up or stay quiet, to skip a task or keep your word. These moments don't look powerful, but they are, because repeated over time, they decide who you become. You don't become disciplined by showing off your calendar. You become disciplined by doing what you said you'd do, even when there's no one around to clap. This is where most people get stuck. They're good at performing, but weak at following through privately. They read the book, but don't apply it. They watch motivation videos, but don't move. They plan, they dream, they talk, but the daily actions behind closed doors don't match. And slowly, a gap grows between who they want to be and how they actually live. That gap is what creates doubt, not because the dream is wrong, but because the behavior doesn't support it. But here's the thing, you can close that gap, not by doing more, but by doing better when no one's watching. Wake up and do one thing you said you'd do, not to prove anything, but to respect your own growth. Stop needing a crowd to move. Start moving because your future depends on it. I knew a woman named Sana, quiet, reserved. She didn't talk much about her goals. But every morning, she was up at 5:30 walking, rain or shine. No selfies, no sharing, just movement. A year later, she had lost weight, launched a business, and had a peace in her face that success alone doesn't give. I asked her what changed. She said, I stopped chasing attention and started honoring the person I want to be. That's what private discipline does. It builds power where it matters most, inside. The truth is, you don't need to prove anything to the world. You need to prove it to yourself. Can you show up when you don't feel like it? Can you finish what you start without applause? Can you lead your life quietly without losing your fire? If yes, then the world will catch up eventually. But by then, you won't even need the recognition because you'll already feel full. Your reputation is what others think, but your character is what you build when you're alone. And that character, that private strength, is what shows up in hard times, when life hits, when plans fall apart, when motivation disappears. It's the quiet discipline that keeps you from breaking, that keeps you walking when things are heavy. And you can't fake that. You can only build it slowly, privately, consistently. So ask yourself this. If a camera followed you around when no one was watching, would you be proud of what it saw? And if not, don't feel ashamed. Feel clear, because now you know where to start. Not on the outside, but in the silence, where who you are is not a performance, it's a practice. You don't become strong in public. You become strong in silence when no one's watching and you show up anyway. Number 7, how to get back up, mental reset after failure or shame. Sometimes the hardest part isn't starting something new. It's coming back to something you walked away from. It's looking at yourself in the mirror after a setback and saying, let's try again. And not in a loud, dramatic way, but quietly, softly, with shaky hands. The truth is, failure doesn't hurt because of what went wrong. It hurts because of what it says to your identity. You start questioning your worth, your ability, and if enough time passes, you stop trying, not because you don't care anymore, but because you're afraid of how trying will make you feel. That's the silent cost of failure. It's not the missed result. It's the mental drift that follows. You lose rhythm. You lose belief. Then you stop trusting your own voice. And in that silence, shame grows. Quietly, without needing to say a word. And the longer you stay away from what matters, the more awkward it becomes to return. That's why so many people stay stuck. Not because they're lazy, but because they don't know how to forgive themselves and move forward. Let me say this clearly, everyone falls. Everyone breaks routine. Everyone quits something they once loved, but not everyone stays down. What separates those who rebuild from those who repeat old cycles is one thing: their willingness to return without perfection, without performance. Just return. That's the start of healing. Not punishing yourself, not hiding in guilt, but walking back into the space you abandoned and saying, I'm here again and I'm willing. I worked with a man named Bilal. He used to journal daily, meditate, eat clean, and sleep on time. For 6 months, he was in sync. Then life hit. Stress at work, a breakup, some health issues. His habits collapsed, and weeks turned into months. When we reconnected, he looked tired, not just physically, but emotionally. He said, I feel like I've lost the version of me I worked so hard to build. I told him, you didn't lose him. He's just waiting for you to stop hiding behind the guilt. And slowly, he started again. One habit, one page, one meal, and in time, the rhythm returned. But what came back stronger was his self-trust, not because he never fell, but because he finally learned how to rise. Getting back up doesn't require a perfect plan. It requires honesty. You need to admit where you stopped, admit what hurt, admit what you've been avoiding, not to shame yourself, but to clear the fog. Because when you speak your truth, even if it's just to yourself, the shame loses power. And when shame loses power, you start breathing again. You start thinking clearly again. You start building again, not from scratch, but from wisdom. Don't let time convince you that you've wasted too much. Time doesn't erase your progress. It only buries it. And buried progress can be uncovered. It can be returned to. You don't need to go fast. You just need to go gently. Pick one piece of your old rhythm and restart it today. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for clarity. Just make a small promise and keep it. Let that be the new beginning. Quiet, real, and yours. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from experience. Return with grace, not guilt. Number 8, choose rhythm over drama. Build a mindset that lasts. Some people chase big highs. They want the excitement, the fire, the moment where everything changes overnight. And while those moments can be powerful, they're not what builds a solid mindset. What builds a mindset is rhythm, repetition, showing up on the ordinary days and doing the simple things that most people overlook. It's not flashy, it's not impressive, but it works because it's real, because it's stable, because it lasts. Drama is loud. It wants attention. It wants results now. But the rhythm is quiet. It wants alignment. It wants growth that sticks. And in a world full of noise, choosing rhythm is an act of self-respect. It's saying, I care more about being grounded than being seen. And that shift from external validation to internal peace is what separates those who burn out from those who build long-term strength. Think about it. Anyone can be motivated for a few days. Anyone can start strong. But can you stay steady when it's boring? Can you return when no one's cheering? That's the real test. And most people fail it, not because they're weak, but because they never built a rhythm. They built their life around emotion. And when the emotion fades, so does the behavior. Let me tell you about a woman named Fariha. She once told me she was addicted to the reset button. Every Monday, she'd start a new routine, new planner, new goals, new promises, and by Thursday it would fall apart. Not because she didn't care, but because she built her system on excitement. I asked her to do something different. I said, pick one habit, do it every day, no upgrades, no extensions, just repeat it. She chose walking, 15 minutes a day, rain or shine. 2 months later, her anxiety had dropped, her sleep improved. She said, it wasn't walking. It was the fact that I finally stuck with something long enough to feel proud. That's the rhythm. That's what lasts. And that's what I want you to build. Not a highlight reel, but a rhythm. A quiet current underneath your life that keeps moving forward, even when nothing else makes sense. Because rhythm doesn't need motivation. It becomes motivation. The more you repeat, the more natural it feels. And what feels natural becomes who you are. Not because you forced it, but because you practiced it long enough for it to feel like home. So let the world chase noise. You build rhythm. Let others burn out from excitement. You build strength from routine, because 5 minutes a day, done with intention, beats 3 hours of effort that only happen once a month. And once you understand that, you stop looking for magic and you start building a mindset that works. Emotion gets you started. Rhythm keeps you going. Build what lasts. Number 9, leadership starts with you. Recharge others by recharging yourself. We don't always realize it, but every day, just by how we show up, we affect the energy around us. Our words, our attitude, our choices, they ripple into other people's lives. Sometimes gently, sometimes powerfully. And that's what makes leadership a personal responsibility, not just a job title. You don't need a stage to lead. You don't need an audience. You just need to be someone who takes full ownership of their inner state, because how you feel shapes how you treat others, and that treatment becomes your legacy. Some people think leadership is about control, about being the loudest in the room. But real leadership, the kind that builds trust, that changes atmospheres, is built on presence. Calm presence, clear presence, the kind that comes from a person who isn't in chaos inside. Someone who's done the hard work of being honest with themselves. Someone who's dealt with their clutter, their guilt, their distractions. That person walks into a room, and without saying a word, you feel a kind of steadiness. You feel safer around them. And that feeling, that's not charisma. That's inner work showing on the outside. You can't pour from an empty cup, and yet so many people try. They give at work, at home, to friends, to strangers, until they're left with nothing. And then they wonder why they feel burned out, unappreciated, lost. It's not because they're weak. It's because they forgot to refill themselves. They forgot that serving others starts with serving yourself first. Not in a selfish way, but in a responsible way. If your energy is always borrowed, your kindness turns into obligation. Your help starts to feel like a chore. And over time, even love starts to feel heavy. That's not leadership. That's a slow collapse. The best leaders I've known, whether they ran companies or raised families, all had one thing in common. They knew how to protect their peace. They guarded their mornings. They kept promises to themselves. They moved with rhythm, not to be impressive, but to stay grounded, because they knew if they were scattered, short, tempered, or tired, that energy would spill onto others, and they didn't want to pass on noise. They wanted to pass on clarity. There's a young father I once met. His name was Rohn. 2 jobs, a toddler, a home full of responsibilities. He told me, every time I come home from work, I want to be present, but I end up checking out mentally. My son's talking, and I'm not even there. I asked him, how much time do you get for yourself during the day? He laughed. None, he said. That's a luxury I can't afford. I told him, it's not a luxury, it's maintenance. So we carved out 10 minutes every morning. No phone, no noise, just him. And in 2 weeks, he said something I'll never forget. I didn't need more time. I just needed space to reset my mind before giving it to everyone else. That's the heart of this number. When you protect your energy, you don't just help yourself. You give people a better version of you, and that version listens better. It speaks more gently. It sees more clearly. It leads by example, not by pressure. People feel that, and over time, they start following your energy, not just your words. You don't need to fix everyone. You just need to stop leaking. Recharge yourself daily, even in small ways, especially in small ways, because small daily recharges, a walk, a breath, a cup of tea, a moment of silence add up, and over time, they create the kind of presence that doesn't burn out. It builds others by being rooted in itself. When you lead from overflow, not emptiness, your presence becomes healing, not heavy. Number 10, your standard is your power. Reset your life one thought at a time. There's something subtle that shapes every decision you make. It's not your goals. It's not your mood. It's your standard, the internal level you refuse to drop below. And the truth is, your life rises or falls to match that standard. Not overnight, not with one choice, but slowly, day by day, through the thoughts you accept and the actions you repeat. A lot of people chase big goals with low standards. They want better results without improving their baseline. So they go all in for a week and then crash. They get motivated, then disappear. Why? Because their core standard hasn't changed. They still allow chaos in the morning. They still tolerate sloppy planning. They still speak to themselves in a way that kills momentum. So even when they reach a breakthrough, it doesn't last. Because the life they want can't survive the mindset they still live in. Changing your life doesn't mean chasing more. It means raising your standard for what you'll no longer tolerate. It means saying, I don't snooze anymore. I don't skip movement anymore. I don't check my phone first thing. Not because it's trendy, but because your energy matters. Because your focus is worth protecting. And every time you choose a higher standard, you stop lowering your life to meet your habits, and you start raising your habits to match the life you want. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent with who you say you are. If you call yourself focused, then your schedule should reflect it. If you want to feel calm, then your environment should support it. If you believe in your potential, then your behavior should prove it. This alignment between belief and behavior, that's what creates power. quiet, repeatable, unshakable power. Let me give you an example. There's a woman named Alina. She used to say yes to everything. Every invite, every favor, every phone call. Her days weren't hers. Her energy belonged to whoever needed it most. And slowly she started fading. Not dramatically, just little by little. Her joy, her confidence, her fire. Until one day she said, I can't keep living on other people's terms. So she made a list, not of goals, but of standards. What she would allow, what she wouldn't, where her energy goes, who gets it. And from that list, she built a rhythm. Her results didn't change overnight, but her peace returned. And with peace came clarity. And with clarity came growth. That's the quiet reset most people miss. They chase intensity, but forget the foundation. And when life shakes them, they have nothing solid underneath. But when you live with a clear standard, not in theory, but in action, you don't need hype to keep going. You just move, because this is who you are now. So ask yourself today, what's the lowest version of yourself you still allow? What do you keep excusing, even though you know it drains you? And what would your day look like if your habits rose to meet your best intentions? You don't need a life overhaul. You need a standard upgrade. One thought, one choice, one line you refuse to cross anymore. Because once your standard changes, everything else eventually follows. Your goals can't grow past your standards. Raise the floor, and the ceiling rises with it.